you've heard like horror stories of people having 15-month evictions, 18-month evictions. Like what were the, well, you didn't do X, Y, Z. That's why it's triple the time length as someone else.
Yeah. So I would say that's maybe more on your attorney than you. If it's going 15, 18 months, something like that shouldn't happen in a residential eviction unless you've done something wrong. So if you took money from the tenant and accepted it without an agreement, that is a good way to get your case dismissed. If you want to try and file the eviction yourself without an attorney, and then you find out 4 months down the road that it was a bad idea, that's a situation where your case will get dismissed and you'll have to restart. Otherwise, they shouldn't be lasting that long. Like if the tenant is doing everything in their power to delay the process, they're not answering the door, they're filing motions to vacate, they hire an attorney, file a jury demand, they can extend that process, but not indefinitely, not more than 8 or 9 months unless there's some other unforeseen issue.
Got it. All right. And then somewhat related question. Let's say a tenant, they're going to get in front of court and be like, well, he didn't, my cabinets don't work, my whatever, like, right? And most of the times it's just desperation. But let's say they have a legit, because just like there's crappy tenants, there are crappy housing providers. There are guys who don't do what they're supposed to do. Let's say they have a legitimate beef. Does any of that matter now, or is it just black and white, hey, you have not paid?
It does. That's where it starts to get a little bit more nuanced. And if you anticipate that there are going to be problems because maybe property manager wasn't addressing things, or there's something more complicated that the tenant has a legitimate claim, that would be a situation where you might consider filing a possession-only eviction. Because if you're not going after the money, that limits the scope of what the eviction is about. If you're doing possession only, the judge is saying, who actually has a right to this property? Whether there were defects or other issues, they're going to be less concerned about that because that's not the issue. The issue is only whether or not they have possession, or whether or not whoever's more entitled to possession. But by and large, those issues, even if there's maybe a real dispute about them, aren't a good reason to do anything other than continue with the eviction as normal, because the judges do see these every day. And that is the most, of the cases that go to trial, the tenants that want to show up and fight, they will make those same arguments. There are problems with the unit. I didn't pay rent for the last year because the toilet didn't work very well, or the refrigerator, I asked for a new one and they didn't give me, whatever it is. And those are generally not a bar to an eviction.
Okay. So I guess point for the housing provider there is just document everything, right? Just in case you get into that situation, in case you have like a lenient judge who will take that into consideration, document everything.
And there is an element of experience that comes into this, because knowing which judge you're going to be in front of would make a difference depending on what the circumstances are. If there are really outstanding circumstances like that, those types of cases are also good ones to settle. I mean, most of the time you're willing to give up pretty much everything to get the tenant out anyway. So if they really have problems, then you can offer them the same deal that you're offering everyone else.
Yeah.
Giving up a lot of the rent or sealing the case, whatever else.
Got it. Makes sense.
I feel a large percentage of ours ends up being just possession. We just want possession. What overall, what do you see in the practice as far as are people really going after the money? I know there's sometimes they have it, but what would you say?
Not usually. I think most of the time the money that's owed is a bargaining chip. It's, yes, you owe that money. Yes, we could come after you. There's a threat of it affecting your credit in the future. There's a threat of it being a consequence for you. And so as a bargaining chip, we can agree to get rid of it if you work with us and sign an agreement and don't force us to go through this process and make the sheriff remove you. So most of the time you're not saying, oh yeah, that $7,000, I'm gonna get it from their wages. That's just usually not realistic, but it is still worth going after it rather than just filing a possession only eviction, so that you can use it as a bargaining chip to try and get the case resolved.